So we are in a little cattail marsh / beaver flowage area along a side channel to the river here, and I am going to show you a house. There's a beaver house right there. So this is an area that I looked at, I scouted out pre-season. We'll see what we're going to do here, set it up. Alright, so this is a house that I found pre-season when I was down here muskrat trapping, and you can see it's not a huge house, but it was active this fall. You can see that it's kind of the top of it's kind of melted. The snow is melted off the top. We had one small warm up, but if you see, the rest of the ground is pretty well snow covered except for the top of that house. So there's obviously heat coming out from beavers' body heat. Not a huge house. There's probably not a lot of beavers here. The other thing that I noticed was that there's no feed pile. There's no feed pile here whatsoever. So that's interesting. Sometimes the feed pile is hidden under the water, under the ice, but this fall I could not find a feed pile anywhere. So what I did find was I found out where the run was, and they were running out of the house and running along the edge of these cattails, and they're kind of coming around, and I could see where they've gone off about 50 to 75 yards from here. And what they're doing is they're going in and digging into the bank and eating the cattail roots. So there's a lot of cattails here, but there really isn't much for food in the way of trees and tree bark and aspen. There's essentially no aspen. All this stuff around here is a mixture of that's pretty much all alder. Actually, there's no mixture really. There's a few other species, but it's pretty much, there's a little bit of dogwood. It's pretty much alder. So in this case, you know, I've got a piece of aspen right here, and there probably isn't a piece of aspen within at least 50 yards of this place, and none of it's near the water. So a couple things to consider here. Number one, I just chipped a hole, and I want to make sure I can still find the run. It's actually a little bit wider than I thought, so I chipped a sort of a fairly wide hole here. There's not too much ice here, but when I chipped the hole and I started kicking around, I started finding some things here. And you could see there's a couple of old chewed up sticks, so they did find something to eat. And then there's a bunch of this stuff. There's a bit of a stick, but there's a bunch of this vegetation. So this is probably pieces of cattail roots that they're excavating out of the bank, and they're bringing some of it back to the house to feed on. But these beavers are really probably going to be hungry and easily come to bait. Now, the thing that I usually look for is if I find a run and I know exactly where the run is, I'm going to set a blind set in the run. That's the first thing I'm going to do at a lodge like this, because I find that with baited sets, there's often an opportunity to miss animals. And it's not as ideal as a 330 set in the run. That's almost a no-brainer. If you have the 330 well anchored right in the center of the run and blocked off pretty good, they get the ice above them, the ground below them, and the sides of the run and sticks on the sides. They got to come out of that house to feed, so it's a no-brainer. Now it's when I find places where the run is limited, it's hard to set, it's hard to find. That's when I start to go into more of the baited sets. But today I'm not equipped to set this up, and I don't have all my stuff with me. But I just brought this stick of aspen, and what I'm gonna do, I'm just kind of poking around, feeling for the run. So there's soft ground over there. Right under me is rock solid and it's deep. Then I get into some soft ground a little bit, and there's actually, yeah, right here is dead center of the run, as far as I can tell. That's hard bottom. It's a little bit lower than the surrounding bottom. So that means the beavers are running in and out of the lodge in that particular spot, and they've kind of worn that down. So what I'm going to do, right in the center of the run, I've got this live popple stick that I just cut today, or aspen. I'm going to shove that down there, and I'm going to leave it there. That's probably going to freeze into the ice tonight. And what that is going to do for me, this is a trick that you can use. It's a very simple trick. If you want to know if you're not sure whether a lodge is still active, put a piece of aspen down just near the outside of the lodge. Come back in a day or two, 3 days maybe, you're chipping the ice, the beavers oftentimes will settle down, they'll be a little nervous to come out. Set that there and come back a couple days later, and if the beaver are still in this house alive and active, that's going to be gone, or it's going to be chewed off and eaten. So that's just a great way if you haven't had a chance to do a lot of scouting and you're going to a spot, you can walk around with a backpack and some of these sticks or a machete if you got a bunch of them around. Cut a few of them and chip yourself a hole in front of the house. Stick that in there and come back and check on it. If it's taken, then it's time to get setting. And if you're confident, you could just set up and just assume that the beaver probably are there. But in this case, no feed pile. It'd be good to have a little extra confidence that beaver is actually in there. So.